You are about to listen to a brand new episode of the Foreign Lady Podcast. I hope you enjoy. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel and also support wherever you listen to your podcast. Now, let's get to the episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Foreign Lady Podcast. I'm your host, Liz.
And the bottom line?
And we're back for another episode. On this week's episode, we are going to be discussing Nick Cannon and his interview on The Breakfast Club, where he talked about finally dealing with his trauma from his divorce to Mariah Carey, and how if he would have kind of dealt with it sooner, he might have not had, 12 kids with 6 different women. So we're going to discuss that. We're also going to briefly discuss Jimmy Kimmel and his indefinite suspension now being lifted. I think it got lifted like 3 days after he was initially suspended for his comments he made about the shooter of Charlie Kirk. So we're going to just briefly touch on that. We are also going to be discussing former Vice President Kamala Harris's book, 107 Days, which came out on the 23rd of September, and just some of the things that she talked about in the book and what people are saying. This book might not have been the best thing and maybe not the best thing for her political career. So we're going to discuss that. And finally, we're going to be discussing dating. How much is too much for a date, or what should a good date budget be, and when should women be able to treat their men, in what stage of the relationship?
Any stage, all stages.
No, not all stages. So we are going to be discussing all of that on this week's episode. So, as usual, how are you doing? How's everything?
I'm doing okay.
Good. I am good as well. Thank you for asking. I'm a little tired. I just got off a flight, but I had a great weekend with one of my besties, and yeah, we had fun. I went shooting, so I got to learn how to shoot a gun some more.
Was it your first time?
It actually was not my first time. It's my second time. The first time was a disaster, I will say that. I hurt myself. I almost like took out my thumb. It was not a great situation.
Wow.
Didn't know how to hold it. Didn't know how to hold the gun. Didn't know how to properly like handle or aim. It was awful. God awful. But this time around, I was a little bit more confident in myself. So, yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a good weekend. We ate way too much and had way too much fun. So, just good. It was a good girls' time.
I'm happy for you.
All right, let's get into it. So let's briefly just talk about Jimmy Kimmel and his suspension being lifted. He has been unsuspended. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see his monologue,
Mhm.
but it was great. He was very emotional and kind of just talked about how his intention, like what he said in that previous episode, wasn't his intention. He didn't mean to imply anything about, the right being responsible or a certain group of people being responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk. He even emphasized that we should take a page out of his widow's book and start leading with forgiveness and healing. I thought his monologue was what we needed. There's no reason why the government should be censoring anybody. Not journalists, not private citizens, and there's definitely no reason why the FCC commissioner should be threatening any sort of news station or anybody for that matter, about there's freedom. It's freedom of speech. So I'm glad that him and ABC were able to kind of come to an agreement, and they were able to work it out, and now he's back on the air. As of this recording, I believe the two other distributors for ABC that distribute this to other parts of the country are now distributing it. I know for that specific episode back, I know Sinclair Group and Nexstar did not air those episodes in various different markets, but I believe they now are. So what are your thoughts on him being back and ABC not folding, because Paramount canceled Stephen Colbert's show, and I really thought that was going to happen next for Jimmy Kimmel. But I'm glad that at least they had the cojones to stand up and not give in into whatever demands they were basically being required of them. What are your thoughts on it? Like, what do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
So I will say this: I'm glad too that they had the cojones because it was like it was setting a bad precedent where if you don't toe the line, if you don't kiss the ring, they will take you out. And freedom of speech is our First Amendment right. That's the one that deserves the most protection.
Absolutely.
So it's always been sort of this thing where comedians get to sort of make fun of the president. And I think that's a good thing because it kind of keeps you in line and it reminds people where our freedoms really lie. Like we can,
Mhm.
make a few jokes about our leaders. We can disagree because otherwise it's totalitarian, right? It's like a dictatorship if we can't speak our minds freely. And I really knew it was a big deal when you had people on the other side backing
Yeah.
Jimmy Kimmel. And it was so important that even Jimmy Kimmel even thanked those people. Like, I thank the people that don't even like me for standing by my side and being very vocal, like Candace Owens and Ted Cruz. These people who don't even like him are saying, hey, he still has that freedom. It still needs to be protected for everyone. And I think that was almost a moment where both sides were clearly on the same page. Like, wait a minute,
Mhm.
this we all have a right to, especially given the fact that this was all over Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk, regardless of whether you like him or not, was a big proponent on freedom of speech. Big proponent on that. So I doubt he would have wanted Jimmy Kimmel or anyone else canceled because of something they said.
Yeah, I agree. I personally think that it was because there were people on the right that were coming out and saying this is not a precedent that we want to set, especially not for freedom of speech, because this is going to come back and this is going to backfire on us if we start doing this. At some point there will be a democratic president in the future, and this is not something that we want to start doing, to be banned or to be censored for whatever our opinions or our comments are. And yeah, comedians have been sort of in a line of fire because people don't like what they have to say, people don't like the jokes that they make, but that's what makes America America. That's what makes us who we are. Not every country in the world has the First Amendment. Not everybody in the world has that freedom of speech, and we need to protect it because that's what sets us apart from a lot of other countries, a lot of other democratic countries. And we know that in in a dictatorship, the first thing to go is freedom of the press,
Yeah.
freedom of speech. That's what Putin did. That's what a lot of Kim Jong Un. Those are the first things to go. And yeah, we don't want to start doing things like that here. So I'm glad that they all parties involved were able to work it out and come back on air. So hopefully it stays that way. All right, let's move on. So let's move on to, I feel like we should kind of stick with our political thing and then move on to the fun topics. But so we're going to talk about Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, and her new book. It's called 107 Days, and in it she dishes about everything. She talks about how the Democratic Party should have been more involved in getting a President Biden to not make that decision to run a second term. They should have made the decision to kind of let him know early on to that you're not going to be running a second term, and not left the decision up to him last minute. She talks about how her vice presidential candidate Tim Walsh was not her first pick, and her first pick was actually Pete Buttigieg, who I happen to like. And she talks about how because he's a gay man and because she's half black, half South Asian woman, having another sort of minority on the ticket might not be the best thing. And she talks about how she regrets it and went with someone she thought could help her win the campaign. And she talks about how, kind of goes on about how she didn't have enough time to properly mount a campaign in those 107 days, and how, it wasn't really fair to her. Her team didn't have a lot to work with, and how the president's team wasn't really supportive of her in during that whole time where she was vice president, where she feels like sometimes it was kind of sabotage, and his team didn't really support her, and she kind of felt like she was designated to like the background, which, the vice president's job is like a thankless job. You're like not usually seen and usually not heard because you're not in the forefront. You're not the main person. The president is. And so people are saying, her coming out and talking about all of this is, going to do real damage to her political career in the future if she ever wants to be in politics again. So what are your thoughts on her sharing all of this and her kind of airing out the dirty laundry of the Democrats, I guess? And do you think that this will be damaging to her political career? And where does she go from here?
Well, sometimes the way I see it is that it's kind of like Malcolm X when he had been to jail, he was in prison, and he would just immediately tell the crowd, like, I'm just going to tell you this so that the media doesn't tell you first. This way
Hmm.
they can't use it against me. He's like, you can't beat me with that stick because I've already told them. Now they already know. They know everything that there is to know. They've seen all the dirty laundry. Now I can be my authentic self. So I feel like now that she's put that all out there, she doesn't have to pretend anymore. She could just say it as it is if she plans on, running again or doing something political. And I think that's the beauty of it. I feel like it's so great when there is now nothing to hide. You don't have to put on a show for anyone. And
Right.
when she comes back, she's like, "Well, I got nothing to lose now," and that's a great feeling. I think she was saying what we were all kind of thinking, and I've said this on our show before. Like when she picked her vice president, the man that she picked him for optics
Hmm.
because there was that point where the issue of race came up. Black men are not supporting her, and optically, I'm looking at it. Well, if you want me to believe that you are behind black men, well, optically, I see you marry a white man and you pick a white man as your VP. Personally, I don't care, but it's going to be hard for you to sell to me that you have my back as a black man too. So if this book is revealing why she picked those men because of the optics, that she had a better chance of winning with picking a white man as a VP. Now I
Hmm.
understand that strategically because that's what I already thought. You picked that out of strategy. You're being strategic. I don't blame you for it. It's just going to be hard for me to believe that you're not going to do other things out of strategy, right? Instead of
Yeah.
helping us immediately when we need it, you're going to wait for when it's strategically okay for you to help us. And that's the only thing I don't like about it. Like you're constantly trying to play the game so that you could win rather than help us. And that means that the people that are voting for you, we're not the priority then. And that's
Yeah.
that's how I looked at it. Like you're more concerned with winning and strategy, but the people that are voting for you, they don't get the help they need when they need it. But now with this book, you're being a little bit more honest, and now we could find out what you plan to do next. Like, how do you plan to put us?
Yeah, and she also, talks about like how it wasn't, the reason why she did not pick Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg it wasn't because of any prejudice on her part that he was a gay man. She goes on, she basically said it wasn't about any prejudice on my part, but we had a short time and the stakes were so high. She said, I think America is and would be ready for that, but I had to make that decision within 2 weeks to go, and maybe I was too cautious, but that's the decision I made. She also goes on to say that she has a good relationship with former President Biden. And she praised him as a highly capable president who accomplished a lot, but she criticized him for, the debate. She criticized him for that. She said that there are some people that might find her revealing all of these things as her being disloyal to him. But she said that she's not a disloyal person. She says, I'm a loyal person, and I didn't fully appreciate how much people wanted to know there was a difference between me and President Biden. She said, I thought it was obvious, and I didn't want to offer a difference in a way that would be received or suggested to be a criticism. So she goes on to say that basically it's not like, people kind of associated her plan with Biden's plan, and maybe that's how a lot of people felt, that because they didn't like Biden's reign or presidency, that she would offer the same thing, and her not distinguishing herself from him would be seen as her being disloyal to him. But she basically goes on to say that there were so many factors, but time was basically the number one thing, and she should have gone with her gut feeling of separating from him and making things on her decisions that benefited, she thought would be good, instead of kind of toting that line and doing, as she was told. I think it's very complicated. I appreciate her coming out and telling her truth and telling her story and sharing with us what happened. But I don't it was kind of like the Hillary book, when after she lost the presidency, she came out with the book as well. And I'm just like, is this just another like excuse, or like do people really care about it, or like what was the point of the book, I guess, besides kind of just sharing her truth and sharing her story. Like, was this the right time to share the story and come out with the book? And also, is she being disloyal to her party? Where, less than 2 years ago, she was the top woman leader of that party. So, like, is this some form of like betrayal, or it's at this point, it's like, we're in a dire situation right now. It's all bets are off. Here we are.
So, as President Trump would say about sort of draining the swamp, I kind of see it that way from this perspective. And I hope I get a chance to read more of her book to find out more details. I feel like I'm only getting a synopsis right here. But I just feel, again, there's a silver lining to just being honest and saying, here's what, because I feel like what you're saying, here's what we did wrong, or here's where we got it wrong. And these are areas we can address next time, like really focus
Mhm.
on the constituents, our voters, how to really feel like we're addressing their needs, that we are there for them. Because again, when we go back to some groups of people that didn't feel like, it doesn't feel like you have our back. It feels like what you're doing is for strategy. And here's a book that, you're admitting it was about strategy. And if she had came out and said that earlier in the campaign, like, hey guys, right now I'm doing this for strategy, but I will get back to you guys, I
Mhm.
would have accepted that. Like, sometimes you got to be honest with people, like, hey, right now I can't help you out, I got to worry about this, but once I'm done with that, I will be there for you. Like, I can appreciate that honesty. So
So
I
you wait, sorry, I'm trying to understand. So you think she should have just like come out with it in the beginning? And you think
yeah.
people would have appreciated that more?
Yeah, because a lot of people, and the right would point this out a lot. They felt like she was sort of fake and phony and like singing like Cardi B songs. Like, I didn't need all that. I don't need you to be around entertainers to get my vote. Talk to
Mhm.
me like I'm a real person with real needs, like, and in her position, I can understand she's under a lot of pressure. She has to choose between her gut feeling and what people are whispering in her ear, like, hey, really, Kamala, like, you do have a point, but really, you need to go this way, Kamala. Like, when 20 people are probably telling you you've got to go right, when your gut's telling you to go left, sometimes you're going to listen to those voices. And
Mhm.
I get the position she's in because she's the first, as a woman of color, as a woman in general, to get as far as she did.
Right.
So she's constantly asking herself, like, maybe I should trust the experts. Maybe I should trust these advisors who know. maybe I should take the path that they've put me on because look how
Mhm.
far I've gotten. And now looking back, she's saying, that she wish she would have done it differently, which is human of her. We've all been there. Like, if I had known what I know now, I would have made a different choice. And to me, what she has right now, it doesn't have to be political suicide, but a clean slate where next time she does get to pick the person that she wants, next time she gets to talk honestly with the people that need her help.
Yeah, well, I guess my thing is, would her party even back her if she wants to run next time? Like, if you are, I mean, if you're talking about all of this things now, I guess that it comes down to trust, right? Like, can they trust her in the future? Are they going to be able to back her in the future? And I hate to kind of be a little grim about this, but being that she is a woman of color, we don't get the same grace as other people. We don't get the same. Yeah, that's basically what I would say. Like we don't get the same chances. We don't get the same second opportunities as other people in her position. And so I guess my where I'm coming from is like will they even be able to support her? Because we could talk about, oh, America's not ready for a woman president, definitely not a woman of color, and people have kind of stoked the idea of, the administration that we have now is a consequence of our 8 years of Obama.
Yeah,
And both times he got in because the running opponent were two women. So is it because America's not ready for a woman president, or is it because of other factors, or I mean, in this particular case, it doesn't matter, but I guess my question would be, would they give her another chance or opportunity to come back if she decided she wanted to maybe run again or run for another office?
I think it's a situation of you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
I think she's just in a position where she doesn't want to run the same race again and get the same results. I think she's like, if I'm going to lose, let me try something different. Let me try a different kind of formula because sometimes you come to the point where you realize they're never going to give you the recognition you deserve, the grace that you deserve. So, what's the point of being nice? Let's just take the
Hmm.
gloves off and let's go down swinging. And maybe I might not be the generation that wins with this tactic, but the next generation will. Some people might watch her next run, her next race, and say, "Wow, like you know what? That woke me up to what's really going on." Because we saw a woman who was very capable still not win, then we have to change. There has to be something we can do differently because you should not be held back for your gender or whatever other kind of thing that can be discriminated against. It should be
Hmm.
based on how skilled you are, how much you care about this country, whether you are a good leader, whether you meet the qualifications to make America
But she met all of those qualifications and it still didn't work.
right. And hopefully, like we get to a point where that's the only thing we're counting and judging on. Like I was saying, this race, like she was very conscious of the fact that she's going to be judged because she's a woman. She is a woman of color, and they're going to judge her for her running mate. Does he meet the uh, the aesthetic qualifications as a VP? And I could definitely understand that.
I personally thought that I mean, nothing against Tim Walsh. I
Mhm,
just didn't think that that was like the right person to be her
mhm,
running mate, but that was just me. I just felt like he didn't really bring anything to the table.
mhm.
I didn't connect with him as a voter. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure there are a lot of people in my shoes that did just not connect with him in any way. But hindsight's 2020. I'm glad she's coming out and telling her story, and she gets some kind of healing from it, because I'm sure it's a very tough situation for her to go through, and also writing the book and everything like that. But I'm wishing her well. We're wishing her well. She's actually supposed to come to my area, and I was trying to get tickets to go see her, but those ticket prices are crazy. So I don't know if I will be going, but
Yeah.
TBD.
Like, the way I see it, I'll just say this last thing. I don't think it has to be political suicide. I think it could be a rebirth for her. She wants it to be just a rebirth, you know? Yeah.
Let's get to our next topic, Nick Cannon. So he went to the Breakfast Club and did an interview with them, and one of the topics that they talked about was his many kids. So he has 12 kids with six different women. He was previously married to Mariah Carey, and he has two kids with her, twins. And he talked about basically how he had not dealt with that divorce. Like he had not dealt with the trauma of that divorce because I don't know if you remember, but when they first got together, everyone was shocked. People were like, Mariah and Nick? That is a weird combination. So I'm sure he, heard a lot of that, and everybody thought that Nick was her boy toy, and it was just a weird coupling. So I can understand. And so after they got divorced, I'm sure it was really tough for him and really hard for him. But the way that apparently he dealt with the trauma of all of that was going around and procreating, and he has brought in 12 children into the world. And as much as children are a blessing, now you've created a broken home, multiple broken homes. So he said that he worked through worked through the way his divorce affected him, that he might not have all of these kids that he does, and he might have handled the situation differently, and he felt like, because he felt like unwanted, and he just didn't, he felt all of this like insecurities, that these women wanting him and wanting to have his children was a way of him feeling wanted, and a way of him feeling, giving himself a little bit of self-confidence, I guess.
Mhm.
And my thing is, so I don't understand how you could put like your kids in that situation where there's no possible way that you can be, as much of a great dad he might be. You're not going to be able to be in all of these kids' lives the way they want to, especially if they're in different states, different countries, or like you're one person and you have all of these kids and all these families. How are you going to be able to take care of them? Let's put the financial piece aside, right? How are you going to be there for them as a present father? So now you're putting hurt on them, and then they have to grow up and be like, so you didn't deal with your issues and your hurt, and so now we're having to kind of deal with your absence and some of your bad decisions and consequences. What do you think about what he said, and what do you think about, just how important it is to deal with whatever situation that you're in, to kind of go and deal with it before it turns into a spiral, or it turns into a situation where you're passing that hurt and some of that unresolved issues and trauma to your kids and to other people.
I would say, if I had to be honest, after a while, I would blame the women
Okay.
because,
Why do you blame the women? Why does the woman get the blame in this situation and not the
well,
man?
look at it this way: how many women has he had children with?
6.
So if number 7 comes along,
Mhm.
does she not know who Nick Cannon is?
I'm sure she does.
Right.
I'm not
So
assuming that every woman would, but because not you know what I mean? Like, I'm not assuming that every woman will know who he is, but
I'm just saying
I
that
get what you're
most
saying.
women tend to investigate the man that they're dealing with, especially if they're taking him seriously for any kind of reason. They're investigating, they're asking questions.
Mhm.
If number 7 were to come along, don't tell me she hasn't heard of him, doesn't know him, and can't figure out who he is. That she won't learn about the other 6. And
Right.
then for her to continue dealing with him, I'm gonna say that's your fault. I'm gonna say you're taking advantage of the man, because let's say Nick Cannon is truly going through something. He's going through some sort of trauma, which again I don't even excuse. I don't
Mhm.
believe there's some sort of trauma, but let's say I do believe you.
Mhm.
at this point, I would say the woman number 7 and hereafter, you're now taking advantage of this man, or at you want to be a part of the chaos. You want to benefit from it. You want to take advantage of it because a lot of the things that Nick Cannon does say is that if you have my child, you'll be taken care of. And I know that as a person, as a man, he should have made better choices, but I'm not gonna act like I haven't heard of women waiting all night outside of an NBA game, hoping to like bag an NBA player,
Mhm.
strategically positioning themselves to be in that life and ending up having his baby and then being paid like, $30,000 a month or something along those lines. I'm not gonna pretend that hasn't occurred or happened. And this is why, again, there's some fault on the side of the women, and there's definitely some fault on the side of Nick Cannon because if the kids are going to ask, "Hey, Daddy, how come you weren't in my life the way you should have been?" At some point, those kids are going to be smart enough to ask, "Well, mommy, why did you have relations with this man, knowing he had children with other women that he didn't marry?" Children
Mhm.
are going to be smart enough to ask both those questions and see both sides, and that's the way I regard it now. So I feel like it's a whole mess, and anybody who got involved, you knew exactly what you were getting into.
So you think that these women, Mariah excluded because they were married, but the
Mhm.
5 other women, you think that they got into it for financial purposes and they took advantage of his situation?
I would say definitely after not counting Mariah, but after the next 2 women, you had to have your eyes open. You had to have some kind of idea. Is this guy loyal? Is he here to
Mhm.
be in a relationship? Because you couldn't have me believe each one of those women were there because they wanted to be a wife. You could not have me believe that. You couldn't have
No,
me believe they were there because, they thought he was the one.
but don't you think that okay, I can give you that. I can give you that they went into it, or they should have known that this was a bad decision. So they went into it knowing that maybe it was just for financial purposes, and he wasn't going to marry them, and they ended up having his kids for whatever reason or another. But at the same time, I think he also has a big part to play in this as well, because you went around making babies with 5 other women. Let's even count let's say, like you said, the first 2. Let's take them out of the picture, right? Let's just say, it was the relationship that he moved on and everything. The other 3 women, I'm like, did you not know what the situation was?
Mhm.
Why would you then go and put yourself in that situation, Nick? Even though he says, "Oh, all of his children were made from love, and he doesn't regret them." I from the way it sounded in that interview, I think he's maybe just saying that because those are his kids, and these kids are innocent and all that, and I'm maybe sure he believes that. But if you read between the lines, he's basically saying that he might have not made the decisions if he had worked through some of his crap. And I'm just like, you can't, like, you have to deal with whatever issues you're dealing with and not bring kids into a situation that is just unpleasant, because now you have 12 children with that you are like, how are you going to break that time with them? How are you going to manage your time to be able to spend time with those kids, especially if you work full time and they're in different parts of the world or country, because we don't know where they are. How are you going to share your time, or how are you going to manage your time being a good father to all of these kids, when all you have to do, you just go to therapy? Like, you have the money for it, you have the resources for it. Why didn't you just deal with that, instead of bringing more chaos into your life and bringing more chaos into these women's lives, and bringing more chaos to these children? Do you disagree?
So what I want to say is and let me say it again, the only innocent party in here are the kids. That's it. Those are the only people that I see as having no fault because some of the women, even when he moved on to another woman, he would spin the block,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Like
mm,
for
mm, mm.
example, the third woman he got pregnant, you know, at some point he went to woman 4, 5, 6, and then went back to
And then
number 2,
came
got
back.
her pregnant again. So now
Oh
you
my God.
can't tell me that you didn't know what was going on or you're not in on this. You are part of the chaos. You are knee deep into this problem. You are causing this, and this is why I say like if he has real trauma, these women are taking advantage of him, trying to make sure that they secure their place. He even says in an interview, like there were times when one of his children he had lost to like cancer very young.
Yeah.
And in that
Yeah.
trauma, you know, some of the women would be there, try to comfort them. And then, in that moment, another baby was produced, you know,
Yeah.
I really can't judge because you are grieving, but I don't know what was going through those women's minds, and something tells me like, the women that he was looking for, he wasn't looking for a wife,
No, I think they knew
amongst
that.
those
I think
women.
they knew he didn't want a wife, especially or a relationship. I don't think he was in a relationship with these women.
Yeah. So I don't think he was good for a wife. Therefore, they knew what kind of role they could have in their life, and they knew what kind of role they would have in his life. And they're just trying to secure that spot. Like, like if you read your Bible, there's a story of Jacob, and basically he has at least 12 sons, I believe,
Mhm.
with four different women, not including daughters. But they're all like competing with each other to have that top spot. And the way that they compete is by having the most children. So I feel like that's what's happening here. So I just feel bad for the children. Like they're the ones who
I
get
do
to
too.
suffer. Anyone else, I'm like, you put yourself there. At this point in the game, you're putting yourself there. If you're out there as a woman and you are having Nick Cannon's child right now, it is your fault 100%.
Yeah. I can agree with you on that part, that the women do have some culpability in this because I do feel like they all of this should not have happened, man. All of this should have been avoided. Now it makes me wonder. I'm like, is Cardi going through something too? Cause she, cause she,
Yeah, right? Because
like,
Stefan Diggs, right?
yeah, she's having his baby too, and they literally. I'm like, okay, this is what like we really have to examine situations like this. I don't understand. Look, not saying like other cultures don't do it too, because they damn well do it too. There are other cultures that are messy as well. But I just feel like as a people, like we gotta stop this. Like we gotta stop creating broken homes. We gotta stop just procreating with any old buddy and not having a stable family and relationship, just a stable family unit. I don't know why this has become just such a thing where it's okay to just have children all just with whoever, whenever, however you want, and it's like it doesn't matter if you can take care of them financially or not. It's the time that's important. Spending time with those kids are very important. Being in their lives is important. Not saying that, taking care of them financially isn't important too, but being there and being a family, I just feel like the family unit is just lost. Like I saw one of my friends sent me an Instagram video where this pastor basically, put in chat GBT and said, I don't know if you saw this, but basically said, if I was the devil and I wanted to cause chaos on earth, how would I do it? And one of the things that came up was I would start creating broken homes. I would create, broken families, broken relationships, broken homes. And I'm just like, this is so true. This is how the enemy kind of wants to place discourse in our hearts, and we don't value relationships. We don't value family units anymore. And it's unfortunate, and it's really sad. At the end of the day, it's like these are the children are the ones who suffer. They're the ones who grew up without a mother and a father in a home. They're the ones who are having to deal with coming from a broken home. They're the one having to deal with all of the trauma that and baggage that their parents put upon them, and it's just not fair.
I mean, if I had to be honest, the solution is that hopefully the mothers get wise and they go out and find the real man. Because he's not going to be that guy. Because even if you were to turn it all around, he literally can't be there for all those kids when they need him
Yeah,
to be. It will be best. The most adult thing you could do is tell the women, hey, I think you need to find a good husband and father for our child because I can't be that guy even if I try.
yeah. It's just a really unfortunate situation. I don't know. I just really wish that we could. I wish we could be different and to just stop creating more broken homes. Like we already have enough of it. We don't need to be adding more.
And let me just say, let's not forget Elon Musk.
That's what I said. I said all the
He is
cultures, dude.
just
Elon got like 12 kids with 5 different baby mamas. Okay,
but I was gonna say one more thing, like Elon Musk is just as bad, but is standing next to Trump. Like they have no problem bringing in this man into the White House. Donald Trump himself has children with different women. They have no problem making that man president. So it's like we're hypercritical of our own, but when they do it, they're still it doesn't have to change the success that they have. Like it doesn't hurt their reputation. People are willing to ignore that. And it's still bad either way. But the
and
last
that's
thing I'll say
bad
is
too. And they should not ignore it. People should not ignore it. People should absolutely call it out. And that's what I'm saying. Like it seems like they focus more on like our community about and it's like no, there are other communities out there too that are going around creating broken homes everywhere they go as well, and it's just not talked about enough.
yeah. And so, like, the last thing I'll say on it is like, whenever they bring up Elon Musk and his, sort of baby mama drama, I'll see in the comments from women saying, "Oh, I would like to be next."
That's wild. That is
They're willing
crazy.
to sign up, to be the next one because they feel like they're going to be taken care of. So, there is a problem with people kind of like sort of giving up on having a family and just saying, you know what, just let me trap you
Yeah,
and take care of me kind of behavior.
that's awful. Let's move on. We're discussing at what point or at what stage in a relationship should a woman treat her man, and what should the budget of a date be? Is it 200, 300, 500? What should the average budget be for a date?
Well,
And at what point in the relationship should a woman take her man on a date?
just so we're clear, it's like this month of September is like National Take Your Man Out on a Date month. And so
Somebody made that up. That's not a
of
real thing.
course, when I shared it to Elizabeth here,
That's not a
she
real
blew a
thing.
gasket.
I sure did.
She ain't trying to hear it. And apparently, like the minimum to spend is somewhere between 300 to $500.
That's a damn lie.
For me, there shouldn't be a limit on love. Number one, there shouldn't be a limit on a good man. There shouldn't be a limit on how much he's there to protect you, love you, like all the love he's pouring on you. There's no price on that. So end the discussion right there. See you next week.
That is not the end of the discussion. Okay, this needs to be discussed thoroughly. No, I mean, at some point, yes, a woman should be able to spoil her man and take her man out if you guys are in a committed relationship. But if you just a situationship, I am not doing anything. Okay? I like no, it's like I have to be in a relationship with you and know that we are in a committed relationship, and of course I would take you out and treat you however you want and whatever you like and buy you gifts and all that. That's wonderful. But if it's just like I'm asking you out on a date and you want me to spend like $500, that's crazy to me. No, I'm not doing that. And September is not take a man to on a date month. That is absolutely made up.
I hear what you're saying. There should not be a month. It should be all year round that a man
Yeah.
can be appreciated, loved on, you
No one
know?
is not saying that. I'm not
It should
saying a
be
man
all
should
year
be
round. There should not
appreciated.
be just a month where you show love to a man.
I am not saying that it should be just a month. All I'm saying is I have no problems showing appreciation for my man if it's my man. But if I'm
Why
just
does it
in a
have to be all that? Why
situationship,
can't you just have love and appreciation for a good man in your life, your brother, your daddy, your friend? These men can't just be like, hey, you know what? You've been a really good, important person in my life. I just want to show you love. Let me take you out. No limit. Because most men, let's be wrong, it's like they're not
no
going to have you
limit.
spend. You should say that to be nice, but any good man's not going to let you go crazy. He's not going to let you go crazy. He's not going to put you in debt or anything like that.
Okay, so you're basically saying that this is, see, you didn't come with that disclaimer. You said like man, like relate. You didn't say a brother or a friend or whatever. That you didn't see. Now you're trying to switch. Now you're trying to
I'm not
switch the
switching
topic.
anything. See, you
You
looked at it,
just
you saw that post and looked at it in the worst way possible. That's all you did with it. Like,
I did not.
like some women that I shared it with, they looked at it in the worst way possible. People were saying that they was gonna report this as spam or something like that. Like you look at that, like it's just supposed to say, yo, if you have a good man in your life, show
Mhm.
him appreciation. That's all it was. Or for
Okay.
some women, like maybe you're trying to let a guy know how much you do care, you like him, you want to start something. That will be a good opportunity to be like, hey, I saw this post. You're a great guy. I want to take you out. Like,
Mhm.
put that little bit of effort in and see what you get back in return. Like, what can that investment turn into? So, this is an opportunity for someone to say, hey, like, I want you to know, like, I'm in this, I want to take care of you the way you take care of me. That's it. That's all. But if already coming at this side eyeing it, well, yeah, it's going to be hard for you to land that guy that you want.
Okay. Okay. Oh, so I haven't even landed the man yet. But yeah, I'm
That
gonna
look how
go
you
on a
making it about
unlimited
yourself.
budget.
Instead of taking the advice, digesting it, and seeing it for the good that it is, you want to turn it into something foul.
You know
Not
what,
because the
ladies and
advice is
gentlemen, this
foul, but
topic
because
is
you're foul.
over.
Because
Thank
you
you
are
for
foul.
thank you
That
for
came
joining us.
that advice came from a good place, but you want to turn it into something evil. That's the devil.
No, 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 no,
This
no,
is
no.
angelic advice. This
So
is
I'm not
heavenly
even.
advice.
So it's not even a man that I know. It's a man I'm trying to get to know, and no. Okay,
Why not?
no,
Why not? Why not? Let's be like,
because
for
some of these
example,
men
haven't
out here, some of these men out here ain't it. Some of these men out here ain't it. I'm not gonna
but
put in effort if I don't know that the same like the effort is worth it.
well, let me ask this. Have you ever met a guy you liked and just said, you know what, let me just do something really nice for him, even if he hasn't done anything for me just yet? Just because
No,
I like him. Well, I mean,
no.
I think, like I said, I think you should give it a try one time. Give it a try. And it doesn't have to be like extravagant. You could just be like, let me buy you some Nikes, you know,
Hmm.
or let me be the one to pay for a date, nothing crazy. And it could be a date to the coffee shop. That's it. And like I said, most good men won't even let you get that far. But the fact that you're trying to do it, that's going to leave something different in him. That's it.
Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm still single because I haven't met a man like that. So when
He
I
already
do,
saw your aura. He was like, not this one.
maybe when I do, we'll have a different
Me,
conversation. Until
listen,
then,
give it a try and see what happens. That's all I'm saying. Give it a try.
that's what I didn't. Isn't that what I just said? I said when I meet a man like that, I'll let you know. I have not met one like that. Until I do,
Experiment, see what happens. Write out the results. Just pick any random man.
just
Do
any
something,
random man off the
yeah.
street.
Any
Okay,
random man, do something nice for him. See what the results are. See what the results.
to be determined. How about
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
All right. Well, that is the end of this week's episode. We really enjoy you sharing and liking and supporting us. So please continue to do so on social media. We are on YouTube at the Foreign Lady Podcast, also on Instagram and Facebook at the Foreign Lady Podcast. And you can also email us at the Foreign Lady Podcast at gmail.com. So please make sure you support wherever you listen to your podcast. And like I said, we are also on YouTube, so you can watch us live and in living color. So yeah, we will see you all next week. Good day.
Good one.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Foreign Lady.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate, like, and subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast.
Follow us on social media at The Foreign Lady Podcast on Facebook and Instagram.
Email us at theforeignladypodcast@gmail.com. See
you next time.